similar experiments carried out with other animals. This is an interesting variation because I started this without realising, and one of the children said to me one day, this was about a year 4 child, she said to me, Mr. Newman, what would be the worst animal that you think would be taught to speak? If you could pick an animal, which animal would you not ever want to have a conversation with? That made me think. So I made me think about this. That's another outcome of this. Other animals would speak. Which would be your worst animal? Which would you never want to experience? Which animal, in your mind, would be not the animal to teach how to speak? Just out of interest. Anyone got any suggestions? Spiders. I'm coming to get you. I see you with all my eyes. Okay, anything else?
Dung beetles.
Yes. That's a first. I've never had a dung beetle before. So, just out of interest, to use our imaginative, and we'll come on to creativity in a moment, but how do you reckon a dung beetle would speak? Just out of interest.
Just be talking about work.
Poo, 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 love it. Okay. What about any other animals? You would not want an animal to be taught how to speak. Which animal would you think would be the worst one to? Hyena. Why do you?
Laughing at you the whole time.
Yes. In the middle of the night, you get his noise. Yeah. Okay. The idea of it is the practice is to get the children interested, to engage, because it's a fun item. There won't be rights or wrongs, but at this stage, we've now got consequence and sequel. Let's go one more stage. Let's now look at an item. I'm going to get you to do one of the red ones in a moment. But before you do, let me just explain why the first one is greyed out. Let me just explain. In Australia, I believe it was Australia, there was a young girl called Jo, and her father had a shop. She stole sweets from his shop, or parents' shop, and she sold them at school, and it became a black market. And as I understand the story, the teacher decided not to punish Jo directly, but her punishment, in a sense, was that she had to run a thinking session on Jo selling sweets in school. And from that, Jo's peers discussed with her the consequence and sequel and the plus, minus and interesting and the other things we've done today. And the outcome was that Jo stopped selling sweets in school. Jo and her colleagues set up a health food bar in the school, and it was sponsored by the local education people, and vouchers were given. No money changed hands, because Jo had been selling sweets for money. She'd been going home with pocketfuls of stolen money, effectively. And this all changed, and a voucher system was developed. Who did it? The children. Who managed it? Jo. So Jo suddenly becomes poacher turned gamekeeper. Now Jo patrols and makes sure everybody gets vouchers, because vouchers are given as presents by parents, by grandparents, by the school for doing good work or whatever, and they can spend them in this health food shop that they have in the school. And it makes money. Suffice it all to say, it's a turnaround, but it's a turnaround because they saw what might happen if they carried on selling sweets. And these are kind of things that happen. Now, what I'd like you to do is to consider one of those other three in a little group of 2 or 3 of you. Let me just run through them. And I picked them for a particular reason. Let me take you to the first one. We hear a lot about recycling. Is your council recycling enough? So I just go that extra step. And I suggest we have compulsory recycling of everything. And I mean everything. We recycle stuff. Nothing is thrown or landfill or burnt. It has to be recycled. Secondly, that we have schools on a Saturday. I know it's been considered in some areas, and in some countries it's already in place. And the third one is give away public transport. Encourage people to just use public transport, so just make it free. What do you see would happen in each of those cases? I'd like you to pick one of those three. I'm not going to allocate it. And just take 3 minutes, like we did before, to consider the short, medium and long-term effects, and whether you think that will change the way in which the implementation should be done. So please consider either compulsory recycling, Saturday morning school, or free public transport for everyone. Just consider with your partner or neighbours the short, medium and long term. You have 3 minutes starting now.
No, I think in the long term.
Who did compulsory recycling? Anyone? Anyone like to tell us about the short term, medium or long? Anyone do that? Okay. Saturday morning school.
Oh no.
Yes? Tell us about the short term. What do you think might happen?
We wanted to know whether it was compulsory or whether it was optional. If it was compulsory, who would be funding that? Would we be raising more money for that? Would it raise standards or lower them? Would children be tired? Would teachers be tired? What are the implications for people that help to organise the school in terms of site agents, caterers, cleaning staff, that type of thing?
Mhm.
If it were not compulsory, if it were optional, would you then only get the children that would be forced into going because their parents wanted the time out? Would it be children would have to pay to go to Saturday morning school, therefore would it be the children whose families were richer, more advantaged, would it increase the gap between the more advantaged and less advantaged? We went on to million funding, so is the main.
And that, was that just short? Was that a summary of all
That's
three?
kind of most of it, really.
You build it up. And that, by the way, that we don't necessarily need to say short, medium, and long. What we need is a progression. If we can get people to think short, medium, and long, and then speak in one brief session, they give us a flavour of what they think might happen at the beginning, during, the middle, and at the end. So it doesn't have to be. We don't debrief this exercise with what is the short, medium, or long necessarily. It can just flow as you demonstrated. Thank you. Okay, so any more on Saturday morning school? Anything slightly different on Saturday morning school? Okay, let's go to free public transport for everyone. Who'd like to show us what they thought would happen in the more immediate, then short term, then long, and medium, and then long?
We did that one.
Okay, go ahead.
We thought that initially there would be a positive reaction.
Okay.
Probably everyone would rush to start using public transport, and they would perhaps visit places and use it for work.
Right, so immediate enthusiasm, people rush to use it, novelty value. Then?
And then we thought that over a period of time you'd find people's transport patterns might change as a result of the fact that it's free. In the long term we thought that it could either go one way or the other. There'd be a much improved service, or that it would implode because there'd be no money, it would run out.
Yes, okay. So if you can see the progression there, that it might go one way or the other at the end, so it would either become very much profitable and people would plough money into it, and whatever, or it would implode on itself and fall apart because nobody would be paying any money, so there'd be lack of investment and all those things. Okay, thank you. Okay, giving you just a simple example. Those three are just ones I've used before with all ages of children. Obviously, I varied them. I tried to always give you a broad swathe of examples to show, but consequences can be something very simple to practice on. It doesn't have to be speaking dogs. It can be banning cars from the middle of the town, or closing schools for 6 months of the year. Just made it up. These things happen. So the idea is what will happen next. Now there is one element missing, and that's why I want to get to the last device before lunchtime. And that is that at this point, you might want to consider a better alternative. So you say, someone's proposed banning cars from city centres. There you go, that's an example. Right, no more cars in city centres. Ban all cars. So you then do a consequence and sequel, or a PMI, and you say to yourself, well, what else could we do? How could we do it? If it's not going to work, or if free public transport is going to, in the long term, maybe get into difficulties, what could we do? Maybe not make it free, but maybe do something else. And that's what we describe, I suppose, as the creative frame of mind. So we now need a tool that will help us to be creative. So we give the children something called APC. And just as we've done before, that was consequence and sequel, this is alternatives, possibilities and choices. So the school in Malta, they use the hand signal, alternatives, possibilities and choices. It doesn't matter how many of those you do, but it's about this one, that one or that one. It's about different choices. And the idea is, what's the difference between an alternative, a possibility and a choice? I don't know, but it means another way of doing it. So instead of banning cars from city centres, let's just restrict it, or let's maybe have it on certain days, or let's have certain types of car, or you're only allowed to do it if you do certain things with your car, like take somebody else, or if you promise not to use it on a given day of the week or the month, you agree to be given to use public transport. So there's variations. So the idea behind APC is very, very simple. And here's an example. How can we encourage people to save water? Now, this is one I did last summer, and I'll probably do again this summer. And I'm certainly going to probably keep it on the books because it's such an easy one. How can we encourage people? Notice the word encourage, not force, not legislate. How can we encourage people to save water? So there are all kinds of things we can do. And I've got a slide after this to show what the children said. Not a school from this country, actually a school from the Netherlands. But nevertheless, let's have a go first. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. I'd like you to think of any idea that you think is an alternative or a possibility. Remember, like I for interesting, something we could do to encourage people to save water. And I'll set you going, which is a very simple one, okay? Very simply, every house would have a big water meter on the side of the house, so you could see the usage. There would be a big I don't know, dial or something, and it would show how much water they used in a week, in a day, in an hour, or whatever. And it would be like everybody's awareness. It would be a way of doing that. So that's just an example. If you feel it's more appropriate to have legislation and to, have executions for using too much water or to bath with a friend, then that's fine too. So please, you have a couple of minutes. Sounded quite appealing. Let's have a couple of minutes, please, on alternatives, possibilities to save water. Yes. It's nearly the dinner bell. Okay, so what can we do? What ideas do we have? Remember, all we're after is some alternatives, possibilities and choices. Let me just qualify. An alternative possibility. It's untried. It's just another way of doing it. Maybe it will work, maybe it won't. Remember, maybe is a good word. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. We don't know. But let's just try and see if we've got some ideas. So, how can we encourage people to save water, please? What do you suggest?
Pay up front.
Pay up front. Yes, you buy a card and you buy your water on a pay in advance basis. How many litres would you like this week? You pay up front. Something else, please.
We said people could be allocated, so you've got 2,000 litres to use this month if you go over that time. But it could roll over, so they don't use it all the next month.
Okay, so you have a fixed quota and then you have a rollover. A rollover. Okay, so you have a system whereby you have a fixed quota and you can use up other quotas later if you haven't used them. Okay, something else please. We're encouraging. Sorry? Pay as you use, pay as you go. Pay as you go. Have a simple system where you just pay for the water, putting money in the slot, or I don't know. Swipe card? Points system. How does that work? Oh, I see. You get points for saving water. Okay, yeah, so you give rewards for not using the water. Money back discount vouchers, money back in shops. Design tanks and collect rainwater. And every house has to be built with, so the water that is collected from rain works services, but is not necessarily for drinking. Okay, thank you. Something else, please, something different.
Limit hot water.
Sorry, go ahead.
Limit the amount of hot water. Okay.
Restrict the amount of hot water. Thank you. Have recycling points in your local area or local town. What was that bit? Yes, okay. So you have water-saving devices that you get with tea bags or with whatever, and just little gadgets to help us to save water. Tap restrictors, like, is it things that you can put in cisterns and things? My sister come up with it's a plastic bag, isn't it? And it fills with water, but it just does the job. Don't have to put a brick in. They just put this plastic bag filled with water. Okay, so lots of little gadgets like that. Anything else, please? It's a tax on bathtubs, okay? Taxed on your bathtub. What was the next one?
Timer on your shower.
Timer on your showers. Cuts out after so many push button taps. Thank you. Anything else?
Make it very expensive for people not thirsty.
Make it expensive.
So if people won't waste it, they'll think twice.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So change the value perception. Water becomes expensive. Change it into a commodity that you don't waste and pour away like blood. Special offer on showers so that every household have one. Thank you. Swimming pool construction.
For individual use, public swimming pools.
All right.
Maybe less.
Okay, so change the way in which we put water into swimming pools and just the construction of them and move them into public areas.
Maybe have more cut from public use, then
Okay, okay. Yep, thank you very much indeed. So change the way in which we think of recreational water as well. Let me show you what the children said. This was a school in the Netherlands, translated by me, no, translated by them. How can we encourage everyone to save water? TV adverts on the effect of overuse, metered charging, tiered pricing, turn off taps while washing your teeth, coin-operated taps, that won a European award for the school. Special colour added for 2 hours every day. I think it's to stop you doing things with it, you know, whatever you would do with it. And alarm after use of quota. And rewards for reporting overusers. Ah, the water police. The water police. And tax incentives for replacing baths with showers, and promote a new slogan, a dirty car is a green car. So just generally, remember the point of the process. The point of the process is to encourage idea generation. When we're doing APC, any idea will be valued by the rest of the group because it's just the starting point. Okay, I think we've come to the end.